Black cisgender heterosexual identified men are killing Black trans women. Black ones.
We are not talking about it in the church.
Those street guys are already engineers. If they're mixing drugs and stuff together, they're chemical engineers.
If you're just like, yeah, let's kill 50 cops just because, you know, that's only a fraction of the Black people that they killed. Wait, now you're talking about my wife.
For those of you who are joining in, we are talking about just the housing in the Black community and owning property, why it's important, and how to get yourself in there.
When I think of financial literacy, I just don't think of the classroom work. I think some of it is practical application.
I'm scared, especially, you know, calling them to arms, talking about poll workers or poll watchers. That is rooted in history of voter suppression and intimidation.
Joe Biden needs to make that a part of his educational platform.
Call that shit out.
I don't see much value in you speaking in tongues, and yet when you speak in English, you don't say nothing for my people.
Many of the reasons why we're dying is because of the conditions we live under that cause our health to be so bad, and that cause it's the food, it's the water, it's clean that shit up first.
Their fathers had prostate cancer. I had like a 150% chance of getting cancer, being diagnosed with cancer. I had a friend that did a raw vegan diet, 20 years remission, had thyroid cancer, never had surgery. I'm like, that's what I'm doing.
Mute. Am I on mute? Nope, I am not on mute. Okay, good. I was all excited. Wait, did I mute myself? Okay. Dang it. I had the intro all nice and wonderful, and then I just messed it all up. Okay, let's try it again. This week in Black People Shit, COVID-19. The COVID-19 vaccine. Are you taking the shot? I'm your host, Christy Ferris. Oh, as Pfizer and Moderna continues to dispense vast quantities of the new COVID-19 vaccine across the country, there are many in the Black community who have expressed some concerns after hearing reports of several side effects after taking the shots, such as headaches, joint pain, fever, even Bell palsy. Today, we have Dr. James Simmons and Nurse Alice Benjamin here to answer a few questions about the vaccination and all of the skepticism that surrounds it. As always, we have with me the lovely and talented Janora McDuffie and
Hey, that's me.
and writer extraordinaire Abdul Majid.
What up?
Please, everybody, don't forget to like, subscribe, share right now. We really want people to know about what's happening today. And if you're not following us on This Week in BPS, make sure you head over there now and follow us there and join the show. So,
Hey, Christy, do you see how the way we look, Janora's on one spectrum of the color wave, I'm on the other, and you're literally dead in the middle.
that's how it always works.
That's how it always is on the show, yeah.
I know.
We're doing it without even trying.
Exactly. Yeah. That's so funny. Well, before we get started and that we bring our wonderful guests on, which I'm really excited about having them on the show, we would like to start by honoring the memory of our late, great icon, Cicely Tyson. What a beauty. I was devastated. I screamed. This woman changed the way that we look at Black women on TV, and she was not going to sell herself out. You guys, what are your thoughts? How do you feel? I was just so sad that because I really wanted her to make it to 100. I had just bought the book, and I also I wanted her to see the success of the book. You know what I mean? Because it only been out like a day or two. So, Janora, your thoughts?
She's still watching and feeling and receiving all the flowers for everything that she has done with her 96 strong years. And I guess that is kind of a mic drop, like my memoir. I'm out in this realm, transition into what the good Lord has for me next. They're not even words to describe, to put her life and her legacy in a sentence. One good try, though, that I would like to repeat is she transcended acting. She was deliberate in how she showed up in the world, and she made sure her actions would impact those who followed. So many people talk about making a difference, but so few people actually pass the test. So you know you lived your life if you did it more than just what your trade was. Her legacy is so much further beyond just her on the screen or on the stage. So I salute you. I have grown and am moved by you, dear sister, Grandma, Madam Cicely Tyson. So yes, go well, travel well.
Yes, Abdul.
I was she had a long, really good life. I understand where you're coming from, Janora, where you wanted to, Christy said you wanted to reach the 100-mile point, but or 100 age point, but she lived a really good life, and we, the three of us, know in this business, just the last 5 years is difficult. The last 10 years is difficult, and the streak she was on. I remember her from Bustin' Loose with Richard Pryor, which was my favorite, one of my favorite. That and Hoodlums. But I like so I have like fond memories of just her as an actress. I've got a chance to read all the stories about her as a humanitarian, how she would just help any and everybody. I saw the really great post that Lenny Kravitz put that was his godmother. I didn't even know that was his godmother, and how long they had a history together, and how she would call him every Christmas, and his family, and so God bless her. It's good in an age now where so many people we see are dying young. Like I saw a recent picture of her and Chadwick Boseman sitting together after they received an award. I forgot what award it was, and then they're both gone.
Right.
And just to see, for her to be able to live that long, have such a good life, even with all the ups and downs with, the Miles Davis stories and things of that nature. But, she's a treasure. She's a treasure. And I hope that I can live that long, and I hope that my family gets a chance to live that long. So.
And I just want to add that, I mean, she completely changed my life. I got a chance to see her on stage, perform recently the last couple of years, and she was just a gem. I literally watched her the whole entire time. I watched her more than I watched any other character that was on stage. And
she made a lot of those Tyler Perry movies tolerable for me, I have to say. She did.
No, I could definitely understand that.
And that's no shade to Tyler. That's just not my lane in terms of movie watching. That's not a shot at Tyler. So.
Right. I think also too, just her story about, going after her dream when her mom was like, nah, I'm going to disown you. You trying to be an actor. I'm kicking you out of the house. And here she made it through 60, 70 years in this business is something else,
And the good thing is that she started getting her flowers. Like people really started giving her flowers for her accomplishments and what she's done, because I'm talking when she got in the movies, what was going on with Black people was not a good space at all. So for her to survive that alone, and just to look back at all of the people who didn't even make it out of her first 10 years in acting, and to make it to 2020 or 2021 and still have movies and projects and books and all those stuff coming out, that's a blessing, man.
And to be a survivor of like abuse with Miles Davis.
Davis,
you know what I mean? And still or even the abuse, from being in this business. I think what was really key for every actor, because it brings up for me the whole Me Too movement, where the Me Too movement didn't happen for her.
Yeah.
And she tells a story where one of her teachers attacked her, who was teaching her the whole acting program. And she went back. And a lot of people, asked her, why would you go back? And she said, because I came here to get what I deserve to get. And a lot of people question people who have been through abuse in some way. Why do they go back? Why do they end up doing the movie anyway, like the Me Too movement? And I think that's a testament for people to just know that, look, I'm still going to go after my goal. I'm not going to let it shatter me. And so I just thought that was beautiful.
Yeah.
So I know we got it. Before we bring on our guests, let's give a little shout out to some of the people who are showing up. So we have Thornton.
Hey,
right?
Thornton.
Thornton.
Yep. We got Kendra.
Hey, Kendra.
Hey, you know what I mean? Is it Takuma? Did I say it right this time?
Hey, Takuma.
Wait, let me make sure I'm saying it right. Abdul, do you remember?
Takuma Sadiq. Yes.
Yes. Okay. Yay, I got it right. Tim, thank you. Anthony for coming in.
Hey, Anthony.
Oh, yes. The woman who can handle Miles Davis. That's a mic drop for sure.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so thank you, Tori.
Hey, Tori.
Hey.
Again, and then of course William, who was he was a guest on our show.
Hey, William.
Yeah, the honor and privilege of seeing Cicely Tyson at 90 in her Tony Award-winning lead actress performance, A Trip to Bountiful. She was amazing, and that was the one I got a chance to see. And she said, "Yes, I got it right." Yeah, I remembered.
Before we move on, I just want to give a rest in peace because we probably won't be able to get to it to John Chaney, the basketball coach for Temple Owls. He was not only a basketball coach, he was a mentor to a lot of people. He fought oppression within the colleges in terms of how they were trying to recruit people and get people out because of their SAT scores and what have you. And he put a lot of people under his belt. Some made the NBA, some didn't, but he made sure that they got their degrees and that they were productive citizens in our society. And for that alone, he needed to be recognized. So rest in peace.
Good tribute. So excited about this conversation. Our guests today are two medical professionals who are on the front lines battling the spread of COVID-19 virus. Dr. James Simmons is a board certified nurse practitioner, passionate on-air medical expert, and doctoral candidate at UCLA. As a proud member of the most trusted profession in America for 18 years, James has curated the online and social media health community Ask the NP. Everything you're too scared to ask your MD. And y'all should check it out because it's really, really good. Alice Benjamin is a board certified clinical nurse specialist and family nurse practitioner with over 23 years nursing experience, specializing in cardiovascular and critical care. She has served as an expert clinical practitioner responsible for providing direct patient care, leadership, consultation, education, and patient care management experts for complex cardiac patients. So please help me welcome Dr. James Simmons and Nurse Alice Benjamin.
Hey, how's it going?
Going well. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Excited. Yeah, you guys obviously Dr. James and I, we've been friends for a couple of years, and I'm always going to him with questions and things like that. And so I was like, "Can you come on and speak to my people?" And he was like, absolutely. So I wanted to make sure. And then he's also a friend of Nurse Alice, and she agreed to come on as well. So the reason why we have both of these guests on is because James took the vaccine. He is all about the vaccine. And Nurse Alice is a little hesitant about it. And I wanted to make sure that we provided both sides of both sides of the coin. So James, can you explain to us what COVID-19 is? That way people can really understand what it is out there.
Yeah, I mean, I love that even though we've been in this pandemic for like 11 months, you went straight to what matters. Like there's a lot of people who don't even really understand what this is. So COVID-19 is the disease that you get from a virus called SARS-CoV-2. And it's part of the coronavirus family. So there's a bunch of coronaviruses. Y'all might have heard of SARS in general, MERS. There's all these different viruses that fall up under a family called coronaviruses. So when we say coronavirus, we actually mean a family of viruses, but it's become sort of everyday speak for just talking about what's going on right now. So that virus transmits just like any virus through droplets. We think a little bit of aerosolization, though that's still kind of controversial. Just like you would get a cold, just like you would get a flu, Like, I spent 14 years in Chicago, and I promise you, every time I had to get on the train and take my commute back and forth when it was cold, when you had to be inside the train, all up huddled next to people and somebody breathed on you, that's how you got the cold or the flu, right? Same thing with COVID-19. That's why we're always saying you have to wear your mask, you have to stay physically distant from each other, because this is a small virus that will transmit person to person, and it loves to do so.
Nurse Alice, would you like to add anything to that?
No, I think James hit the nail on the head. And I do like the fact that he mentioned that when we say coronavirus, there's a family of viruses. So I need people to understand that. And we'll probably get into this a little bit later, because there's a lot of information that's going on out there about coronaviruses, but it may not be specific to the virus that we're dealing with today. But I'll save that for a little bit later, because I know this is about to get juicy, because we're going to talk about a lot of things.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So the one thing that I want to make sure that we bring up, a lot of people don't understand. I know I have some white friends that are out there, and even some Black friends who don't understand why Black people are not fans of taking this vaccine. And everybody knows about the syphilis, Tuskegee, all that good stuff. But I wanted to bring up a couple of other ones. Fannie Lou Hamer, she went in, she was an activist back in the 60s, 50s, 60s. She went in to get a fibroid removed, and they ended up sterilizing her. They took out her ovaries. And in that whole entire area, I think we have a picture of her that's on there. Yeah. And so in that area, they did the same thing. They sterilized over 70,000 women before 1960 during that time. And majority of them were all Black Mississippi area. And that's what they were doing in that area. Then we have another situation where there's a documentary called Hole in the Head, where they were practicing radiation on kids during that time that were around 5 years old. And there's a picture of a guy who has a hole in his head. That was one of the things that they were doing during that time. And then you have Eugene Sager, who was giving radiation again to like 300 rads in a few hours, which was equivalent to about 20,000 chest x-rays. And then we have J. Marion Sims, who experimented on Black women slaves and didn't give them anesthesia. So these are some of the things that a lot of people don't realize why we feel like we don't trust them. So I'm going to start with, I guess, you, James, Dr. James, let me be correct, on why it's okay, why you feel like it's okay to take the vaccine. And you can also talk about your experience of taking the vaccine.
Sure.
And which one you took?
Absolutely. Well, I think I'm going to start this conversation off with what I think is really important for everyone to remember. At least this is one of my sayings from 2020 that I'm still bringing with me to I'm going to try to leave a lot of things in 2020, but I am bringing this with me into 2021. Multiple truths can exist simultaneously. We can acknowledge that there is still incredible systemic racism that still exists in our society right now. And I'll just talk about the United States, because that's obviously what I'm most comfortable with and know the best. It was up until 2014 that forced sterilization of women of color was actually legal in the state of California. 2014, right? There are countless. The Baltimore public housing experiments where they intentionally placed families in houses with lead paint to see what would happen to children in particular, but entire families that lived in lead paint. The Baltimore Housing District did that. That was less than 40 years ago. These things continue to happen. So we not only have to acknowledge these things, we have to really understand the root of them. The root cause of them is racism, right? And the things that continue to happen are at a root cause racism. And racism didn't just all of a sudden show up last summer, right? When all the white folks realized that, like, oh, maybe police kill Black folks because they're Black. Like, we know that this has been here for a long time. So those of us who are people of color, who grew up in households that had a big mistrust of the healthcare system and continue to do so at this time. It's because we heard all these stories and the millions of other stories that don't get told. So we have to acknowledge that. We have to continue to work to fix that. And that's part of why I do what I do. At the same time, we are in a car moving at 75 miles an hour towards a brick wall. And we can't worry about whether we hit the brakes 700 feet ago. We can't worry about if we had our seatbelt on right now. We have to stop the car before we hit the wall. And one of the only ways to stop the car, no lie, whether we like it or not, one of the only ways to stop the car is this vaccine.
But
And
you're assuming that the airbags in the car work with this vaccination, being that this vaccine has mutated multiple times. So are you promoting something? Are you promoting something that may not even work in the car wreck that you're specifically talking about?
So
that is an amazing question.
And then and after you answer,
And then I would like to get
Nurse
Alice.
Yeah. And by the way, Alice, sometimes I'm just saying when CNN, NBC, Dr. Oz, people call on medical experts, they call on Nurse Alice, by the way. I'm just letting y'all know like who's really in the room. So you're right, Abdul, you're right. This literally SARS-CoV-2 that I was explaining earlier did not exist 14 months ago to our knowledge. It did not exist in human beings. This whole thing is so new. What we know of from the safety data before, and I took the Pfizer vaccine. So the Pfizer vaccine was tested on about 44,000 people with really awesome safety data. Like most people did not get sick from this or have really bad side effects. And it protects you from getting sick. It doesn't protect you from getting COVID. It protects you from getting sick in about 90 to 95% of the time. I don't love it either. It's only been around for a minute, but it's the best thing we have. And I promise you, from someone who has worked on the front lines, I signed 27 death certificates in the month of December alone. 27, all of them from COVID. I work at a hospital where they brought in those refrigerator trucks because the morgue was overflowing. I've seen patients die of a heart attack in the parking lot of my hospital because we didn't have enough resources to treat them. So when I'm a bottom line person, do I really love that there isn't robust, amazing safety data on this vaccine over years and years and years like other vaccines? No, of course not. Do I see Black and brown people dying 3 to 4 times at the rate of white folks in the hospital where I work? Yup. And do I think this vaccine could maybe prevent that? Yup. That's like bottom line. You either get an option from the vaccine or you get an option from COVID. And I promise you, most folks don't want COVID.
So go ahead and jump in there.
Nurse Alice.
Nurse Alice.
So I love James. James is, I would let him take care of me any day, any of my family. He's brilliant. But when we're talking about the COVID vaccine, so I understand the severity of the coronavirus, COVID-19. We've had I think our numbers are up to 475,000 deaths here in the United States. So, very tragic numbers. People are getting sick, they're dying. I understand the severity of that. But now, the reason why we're at a point where we need a vaccine is because people didn't adhere to the recommendations of wearing a mask, social distancing, and all of these preventative measures. And so now, fast forward, we had to create this vaccine to hopefully, and as Dr. James alluded to, it helps to prevent you from getting ill or severity of your illness, but we don't know yet that it necessarily prevents the spread of coronavirus. So there's a lot of questions that I still have. And as a healthcare professional, like James too, I've worked in ERs and ICU where we ran out of ventilators. We ran out of medication. We ran out of IV pumps. And quite honestly, and I'm just going to just share so y'all understand, I had a patient who coded, who died of COVID-19. They're calling code blue elsewhere in the hospital. That person's wheeling up. They're bagging the patient saying, I need a ventilator. The person just died 10 minutes ago. We're having to quick clean that ventilator, throw it onto this person. So people are getting sick and they're dying, but I'm not quite 100% convinced that the vaccine is this savior that everyone is painting it out to be. Now, I'm not going to argue with the science per se, and that, they've been working on mRNA vaccines because everyone's like, this happened so fast. Well, they were actually working on some things. I understand that. However, there's a lot of unknowns still. And often in medicine, we can do things, but I don't know that just because we can do it doesn't necessarily mean that we should. And I believe that in taking care of people's lives, I want to be sure before I give you a medication or a treatment that it's not going to be more harmful to you than it is good. I'm not saying that's what the COVID vaccine is going to do, but there's still a lot of unknowns. They did, research in over 40,000 people, but the populations in which they looked at, some of the more specific details and questions that I have were not answered by those studies. So as a healthcare professional, being on the front lines, taking care of patients with COVID, I've not gotten COVID, but I'm also social distancing, washing my hands, wearing my protective gear. So I'm of a firm believer that provided you are doing all of the preventative measures, that you don't necessarily need to jump into the deep end with everyone taking a COVID vaccine. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying that I'm not anti-COVID vaccine, but I believe that people should have a choice. I need to be an informed consumer about this vaccine. What does it do? How does it work in this population? And we don't have all the nitty-gritty questions that we would like. There's lots of stories and things that are out there, and they'll say, oh, well, studies don't show. Well, yeah, because we haven't quite studied that yet. But as these isolated incidences start coming up, they do warrant attention. They do warrant investigation. And I think some of them have been, very severe. And I think dare I say, we need to pump the brakes a little bit, or allow people to really, make the decision and stop shaming people for not getting the COVID vaccine. That's one thing that I really dislike. People are shaming people for not getting the COVID vaccine. I'm a frontline healthcare provider, and I wish somebody would try to shame me, at least to my face. I feel the pressure. I feel it. It's peer pressure. Just like, we talk about, don't peer pressure someone to have sex. Don't peer pressure someone to use drugs. Stop peer pressuring me to get the COVID vaccine, and as if I'm a bad person because I don't get it. I'm doing all of these other things. Have you? No, you haven't. That's why you need the COVID vaccine. Maybe if you don't want to do these things, then go ahead and do that. But I have a choice. This is my body. Nobody's the boss of my body.
Right.
So
I think, and I'm going to let Janora ask a question, but I think one of the things that a lot of people are also concerned is that they haven't done enough studies, trials in the Black community to see how it affects Black people. And I think that was one of the things that made me a little nervous. Janora, I'm gonna let you jump in, and then we'll get to some of these comments and stuff that are written up, unless you want to say some of that stuff.
No, absolutely, because I think I'm gonna do it all just in one. First and foremost, I want to say thank you, Nurse Alice and Dr. James, for being on the front line. I think hats off to all healthcare workers, those that have been on the front line and have seen the atrocities of the COVID virus firsthand. I can't even imagine that. So thank you for all that you have done in the past year. The second thing is, this is an opportunity not just for us as hosts to ask questions, but all of you guys who are tuning in. This is your opportunity. If you have any hesitancies, questions, conspiracies you want to have debunked or confirmed, type them in the comments. This is your time. We had a very powerful time with Dr. Reagan, our first season when COVID first came on the scene, and we had some excellent questions. So I just want to make sure that the opportunity exists for you all today. My question, I'm Team Dr. James. My parents got the vaccine this past weekend. My sister got it yesterday. My sister-in-law getting it next week, and my other sister-in-law got it last week. So what's important to me, though, or what has changed my mind or convinced me to be pro-vaccine, are the people I personally know and respect who have taken it. Again, you can read something, but if I know you one-on-one, and I know you are the smartest person I know, I am going to trust you. And so a lot of brilliant people that I know, shout out to Dr. Hubbard, shout out to Dr. Gower, all of them have taken it and have been a role model to me, or a good example for me to follow. Now time for my question. That was a long lead up. Sorry, y'all. My question then in that case is directed to you, Nurse Alice. What are the things that you would need to have in place in terms of questions that you would need to have answered to feel comfortable getting on a vaccine bandwagon. I don't even want to call it. I don't think that's a fair representation of the vaccine. But what are the remaining questions that need to be answered for you to be like, you know what? I get it. I'm going to take the vaccine. I'm convinced.
Okay, so being in healthcare for such a long period of time, I'll be honest, medications come out and many healthcare providers are a little slow to start administering them. And they'll tell you, you know what, let's wait a little bit. Let's see more data, make sure that it's safe. I think that we're only in the situation that we're in now is because, you know, obviously on the other side of this COVID vaccine is the potential of death. So there's a fear factor that's involved, but you're not going to fear me into taking something, you know, without fully being able to digest this. I would like to see more studies in different populations. As we know, we'll take heart disease, for example. We know that there is an algorithm of medications. When someone has high blood pressure, we start you on a particular medication and kind of there's this algorithm that we follow. Well, we've learned that Black people don't necessarily always follow that exact algorithm. There are certain medications that work better for Black people when it comes to managing their high blood pressure. But you need to be a culturally competent healthcare provider to understand that, so you don't run a Black person through all of these perhaps could be unnecessary steps while struggling to manage their blood pressure. Let's go to what the science and what really works. But it took a while to learn that. So with this vaccine, I understand the importance of it, but I just would like to see more studies about it. I mean, there have been isolated cases with the particular physician in Miami who shortly after and he was pro-vaccine. He was pro-vaccine, everything, you know, shortly after administration of the vaccine, long story short, he developed a blood clot disorder, which ultimately led to his death. We're seeing people who are having anaphylactic reactions. You're more likely to have an anaphylactic reaction with one of these COVID vaccines versus, say, the flu vaccine, things that we're more accustomed to.
Which is what?
And I believe the numbers are 11.1 cases of anaphylaxis in every 1 million. Sounds like a low number, but still it's higher than what we're used to seeing in vaccines. You know, and for those people who've gotten the vaccine, some people can have, you know, just very minor side effects. Some have very severe side effects. So just wanting to learn and understand more about what happens to who and when, because we're the United States. We have the ability and the talent to really hone in and learn these things. And I think that for me, in order for me to get them, I would like to see that data first. And let me just say this, I'm a single parent. I don't have time to mess around. Something happens to me, I need someone to look over my children. So I want to make sure that before I take anything that I really know the risks, the cons of the medication before I take it. And not, you know, obviously I'm single, by the way, but if I were to, you know, have, James is laughing, but if I get married and want to have children, so we don't know enough data for as far as women, pregnant women or lactating women, or I'm just going to throw it in there. What about women who are actively trying to get pregnant? We don't know if there's something that's going to go on. And I'm not saying that there is, but I would just like to know. And we have the ability to learn these things. So everyone's, you know, gas is on the pedal. And I'll be honest, I also think that there are a lot of non-healthcare professionals who are pushing this vaccine, who really don't fully understand the ramifications. And maybe if they could better understand the data, which, by the way, they'll say the science is there, trust the numbers. We all know that we can make numbers look the way we want to look anyway.
Right.
Let's just be honest.
So there's a few comments and stuff that I want to make sure that we get to, Heather. Maybe you guys can answer or speak about. My healthy 29-year-old daughter had say it for me.
Moderna.
Thank you. Moderna vaccination last Friday. I said it early. I got it right on the original. And she said that she felt strange immediately. 5 minutes later, went into shock, was treated, observed, doing great now, but declined. But decided if she should do the second one.
I got 2 questions when you get a chance.
Okay, so Dr. James, what are your thoughts on that?
No. She should not take the second one. She is now
29 and got it though.
There are. What's that, Alice?
How's she healthy in 29 and she got the Moderna vaccine?
Right. That's my first question. Like, we all of a sudden still have people who are over 65 have multiple underlying health conditions that still can't get this vaccine, who want it and can't. So that's another question. However, maybe she's a healthcare worker, but
could be.
No. there's a lot of people who under no circumstances should get this vaccine, particularly without a conversation with their primary health care provider. People who have had anaphylactic, meaning you swell up and you get an allergic reaction so much that you can't breathe, and they sometimes have to intubate you, right? Put you on life support. So if you are a person who has reacted that way to a vaccine in the past, do not get this vaccine. If you are someone who is undergoing chemotherapy or is otherwise immunocompromised, so you don't have a very good immune system, don't get this vaccine. If you are undergoing any type of cancer treatment, if you are HIV positive and not taking your medications, talk to your primary care provider before you get this vaccine. If you are pregnant, want to get pregnant, or lactating, talk to your primary care provider before you get this vaccine. I am definitely, obviously, I'm pro-vaccine, but I'm also like pro be smart about it. So if you've had an anaphylactic reaction to something before, don't ever do that thing again, ever.
Right. And if I could just add on there. So Janora, I know you asked me the question earlier. Yeah. I'm someone who has had anaphylactic reaction to medication in the past. I know what it's like to be intubated. So I am going to take every precaution, and that includes this vaccine as well, to want to know more information before I actually take it.
So my quick follow-up to you, Nurse Alice, is I definitely understand everything that you said, but you also are someone who seems super healthy, lots of life ahead of her. Would you say the same thing for our more vulnerable population?
So, and thank you for that. I do try my best to stay healthy. And this is why I won't say that I'm completely anti-vaccine, because you have to weigh your options. You have to look at the bigger, what we call clinical picture as to what's going on. So if you're someone who's elderly or older, who has diabetes, hypertension, a lot of other medical conditions, perhaps your immune system isn't as robust. I'm going to say this: it's still going to be very important for you to take those preventative measures. But perhaps, if you and your healthcare provider feel that you are at more risk for getting COVID-19, so what are your potential ways of getting exposed? Or do you have a lot of people coming around you? Because sometimes I believe in the cocooning effect also. So if I have Granny who's home and has all these medical conditions, she needs to have all her grandkids need to stop running in and out of this house and doing all these preventative measures, because again, the vaccine doesn't prevent you completely from getting COVID-19. I think that's also what we need to get clear, because I think people think, I get the COVID vaccine, I'm not going to get it. No, you still can get it. We're hoping that the vaccine makes your illness less severe, but you still can get it. So I think that's something that gets overlooked when we're having this conversation. So, but to your point, should someone who has other medical conditions, should they get it? It's definitely something to consider, but I would still err on the side of tell these grandkids stop running in and out of this house. Make sure that you're doing all of the preventative measures, because again, you're going to take someone who has multiple medications. And I'm not sure if Dr. James, you tell me if you've seen any studies around this, but we don't know yet people on certain medications, if I'm just throwing that out there, that could there potentially be some type of long-term interactions or effects that could exacerbate things. We don't know that yet. So I would rather err on the side of, prevention versus having to take this vaccine. It's like, you want to lose weight. You can't take a magic pill to lose weight. You got to eat healthy. You got to exercise. You got to, do mentally get in the mindset. You got to do all of these things. Don't expect for a vaccine to save your life. That's not. I'm going to say that the vaccine's not necessarily going to save your life. It's not a treatment. It's something that's a tool to add into the rest of the recipe to decrease your chances of getting sick and potentially dying from COVID-19. And I think that's the message that gets overlooked. Everyone thinks that, I get the COVID vaccine, I'm good. No, not necessarily. You still got to do all the other things.
I got two questions.
Go ahead.
Question one is specifically about the shot. Is this specific shot uses mRNA? Mm-hmm. So could either you, doctor or nurse, explain to the group what mRNA is and why they choose to use this specific mRNA as opposed to using a piece of the vaccine as they use for many of the other vaccines that people have been given before?
I'll let you take that one, Dr. James.
Excellent question. So the Pfizer and Moderna use this mRNA technology, right? The Johnson & Johnson one they're probably going to get emergency use authorization for actually uses that other technology that you just mentioned, Abdul. So The long story short about explaining mRNA technology, because this is not necessarily a like cellular microbiology class, but you get the vaccine, this mRNA goes in and tells inside of the cell how to reject the coronavirus being able to attach to its wall. Coronaviruses or SARS-CoV-2, this specific coronavirus, has to attach to a cell wall in your body. It attaches to the cell, goes in so that it can replicate and grow. If it can't attach to the cell and then go inside to replicate and grow, it dies.
Yeah.
So we use this mRNA technology to teach your body's cells how to not let coronavirus in. And if it can't get in and replicate, it dies, okay?
Yeah.
So the mRNA technology, interestingly, has actually been around for about 30 years. The first time it was used for vaccination, attempted vaccination, was Ebola. It was developed really around 2010 and then ultimately was tried as a vaccine for Ebola in 2014. It did not work very well. The Ebola virus is on the order of 10 times more complex than this coronavirus. So what researchers thought was, okay, we have all this information about how mRNA vaccines work against Ebola, which is a really, really complex, unfortunately, super smart virus. But this version of this coronavirus, this cousin in the family, isn't that complex, not that sophisticated, not that smart. Maybe we can use the same technology against a virus that is not quite as sophisticated, as you will, as Ebola. So they tried it. It seems to work. The data, and I do want to acknowledge this. We don't have data. No one has a time machine. Like this only been around for so long. I 100% agree. Even though I'm pro-vaccine, I 100% agree. We don't know I might grow a third arm in 12 years. Like who knows? But what we do know is that about 94.5% of the time, when we give people this vaccine, it stops coronavirus from entering the cells, being able to replicate and being able to make someone sick. And I really want to reemphasize what Alice said, because Alice was spot on. This vaccine is not a shield to prevent you from getting COVID. It just will likely 94% of the time prevent you from getting sick and dying from COVID.
But so the thing about the mRNA, so the M, people don't understand, is messenger ribonucleic acids. The M stands for messenger. It was created during these sort of gain of function researches that they were doing for other drugs or for research for other drugs. Well, my concern is that your body will naturally, for the average person, for the average healthy person, I believe they said something up to 88% of the people in our population, their body will automatically fight it off and build the immune system enough to fight it off. It's the people who have compromised immune systems that are the ones that are more in risk. Not the majority of the population, even though they will get it, they will probably get sick at some point, but not to the point of death. My question is it worth having this sweeping net and giving everybody something when it's only 88%, when 88% of the population body will automatically fight it off and will build the immune system you need to fight the vaccine, in your opinion?
Quick and dirty, I'm gonna say yes for two reasons. So in the almost a year we haven't had a vaccine, look at how many millions of people have died. So we plan with people's lives. That's great. You're right. 94% of people who get this are going to get it, maybe get a little bit of sick, recover, and be fine. 40% of people don't even ever know they have it.
Yep.
But so sure, that's great. All these young, healthy people otherwise are doing fine. But guess what? We did that experiment that you just proposed. And now we have 475,000 dead Americans.
But that's not even close to the number. It's like people have like heart failure, like people have.
I'm almost.
It's not even close to being those numbers.
So those 400. This is how I explain it to my patients, and literally in the hospital who have the same question. Abuelita, grandma, had diabetes. it hadn't killed her until she got COVID. Her body did not have the resources because of her diabetes, because of her heart failure, because of whatever, to also then fight the COVID. So everyone is like, oh, it's not COVID killing people, it's their heart disease. No, their heart disease hadn't killed them yet. Their body didn't have the resources, so the COVID did. Now, that was I think one of the things that is really an unfortunate message that has gotten out to a lot of people is that you can't die from this if you're young and healthy. And I want y'all to tell that to the 42-year-old right now, ex-professional soccer player from Mexico who is intubated in my hospital right now. There was nothing wrong with this man beforehand. The other thing I will just say that I think is really important, and I want other folks to chime in because I don't want to talk too much, is we're seeing these mutations now that we might not be able to keep up with a vaccine or with any of our therapies because we've let the virus spread unchecked. And so if we continue to let it spread unchecked, it's going to continue to mutate in ways that we can't keep up with. So we have to try something to slow this thing down, because right now they're talking about there's a now second and third variant of the variant in South Africa.
Yep, and England.
That is dropping folks. No, even the new one from South Africa is dropping folks like 50% of people who get it. And that's because we've let this virus, because we haven't done the things that Alice said we need to be doing, we've let this virus grow and grow and grow and mutate and change. And so to your point, I'm glad I'm pro-vaccine now, but I feel like we might already be behind the game. We might have missed our opportunity already.
So let me I think that's interesting, because that was going to be my next question. Does this vaccine, will it prevent us getting the second and the third, thing that's mutating? We don't know. So then let me ask you this. If you've had COVID and healed from it, whatever, do you have to get 2 doses of the vaccine? Can you just get 1?
So, that's a very common question, frequently asked question. And we know that when someone gets COVID-19 and they've recovered from that, it's anticipated or expected that they've developed some form of antibody, so have natural immunity. But we don't yet know how robust that is or how long it will last. So there's some information that's come out from the CDC that says that if you've had COVID-19 and recovered, that eventually, yes, you should still get the vaccine for that additional coverage. They haven't provided a clear-cut date, but I've seen 90 days. If it's been 90 days, then yes, you can go ahead and get it. But I know that still also raises a couple questions, and I feel like this is where, if we, with all this talent, this research, our epidemiologists, I'd love to see them learn more and share more real time. Because one of the things, and Dr. James, you tell me this, I hate when they're doing all of this information and we don't get it till the end. It's like a dump. But it would be great if they could keep us healthcare professionals abreast of things as this is going along, because people are coming to ask us questions and we don't know the answers per se, but we don't know how robust that immunity is going to be if you've recovered from COVID-19. So the current recommendations are that yes, ultimately you should still get the vaccine, but maybe in a month or 2 or a couple months we'll learn from that there's a certain subset of people who don't need to get the vaccine. I think there's still a lot unknown, which is why I'm not a fan of pushing medications on people. You've heard the term polypharmacy. Like you've seen grandma's medicine cabinet. She got 20, 30 different bottles. Like I'm not a fan of that, because that's playing a chemist. You're mixing things, right? And we mix things. We don't know in the long run what we're going to get. So I think I answered your question and then still went down a different rabbit hole, but I hope it answers it.
If there are questions out there, please make sure, because I'm not able to see them all. Some of them might have disappeared. Please repost them so that we can bring them up and ask. Janora, do you want to read this one? Oh, wait, you're on mute.
Oh, she's on mute.
Go ahead.
Sorry about that. No, great minds think alike. I was about to shout out Thornton too, because I think this is a great question. I'm a postal carrier here in Charleston and come in contact with many customers. Most of them don't wear a mask, that walk up to me and hand me mail. It scares me to have to deal with this every day. I'm 41 and in good health, so should I get the vaccine?
My answer is yeah, absolutely, because you are someone who is in a high risk category. You're what we would call an essential worker, and I know that we are on This Week in BPS, and so I would be reticent to bring up the fact that it does not matter what community you live in, at least here in the United States, and this is different. This is kind of different in some places globally, but we're just going to talk about the United States and the racial, social, economic issues that are going on here. You are 4 to 5, I think I said this early on, but I'm gonna say it again. You're 4 to 5 times more likely to be hospitalized if you are Black, Latin, or Indigenous in the United States. You are 3 times more likely to die from this. Part of that reason is because we, the people of color, are those essential workers. So you see the TV commercials, you see everybody talking about, oh, we want to celebrate the essential workers. Thank you for keeping the economy going. Woo, woo, woo. It's Black and brown folks who are checking out our groceries. It's Black and brown folks delivering our mail. It's Black and brown folks fixing our cars when they break down. It is Black and brown folks, because of systemic racism in our country and the way that our socioeconomic situation is set up right now, that are overexposed to this virus. So part of the reason that maybe you as a mail carrier, anybody, your dry cleaner who has stayed open through this whole thing, whoever, part of the reason I'm so passionate about this is because, honestly, we had a broken healthcare system, a racist ass healthcare system before. We all saw this coming. We all knew that this pandemic was going to expose how racist the system really is. And now we got our people dying on 3 to 4-fold more than white folks. I'm willing to do anything about it. I feel like we don't have time to wait. I feel like if someone brings me, and I'm with Alice, because I didn't know, they dropped some data on us, and then that day they had me on TV trying to talk about it. I was like, I haven't had a chance to read this, you know what I mean? Like, they surprised us with all of this. No, it's not the right way to do it. Yes, we have been doing vaccines for 10 years at a time, but we are comparing apples to oranges. This is a pandemic that is killing our people faster than basically anything else other than slavery and then Jim Crow. So like, I'm willing to take the risk because I'm tired of, Frank, I'm just being passionate about it right now. It's been a long day. I'm just tired of seeing Black and brown folks die of this on the front lines because they are the mail carriers, because they are the people keeping this economy going. So, you know, essential workers celebrating that. But they're also, a lot of the people in our community are not the people who get to stay home and work from home, be on Zoom all day, have a bougie ass house where different people can be in different bedrooms and all these different things. Like, and that's, I don't want my passion to be misconstrued as I'm just like blindly in on this vaccine, somebody paying me to talk about it. Like, I get all of this. I didn't love it either. But when they said, do you want to get that vaccine? All of the Blackness in me got real conspiracy theorist, and all of them, I'm tired of seeing my Black folks die of this, was like, yes, give me the damn vaccine.
Okay,
but Dr. James, I'll just say, I mean, and that was beautiful, but I also want to empower the postal worker. When we don't speak up, we are accepting of these conditions. I am quick to tell you, and people who work with know, if I see you breaking infection control or something, I'm like, stop there. You don't have a mask on. You can put it right there. I'll come get it. I think, and I know people are like, I don't want to say that. Well, I don't want to die either. So I'm going to speak up and say these things. And I'm not trying to create hostile environments, but we have to speak up and hold people accountable, because that's why we're in this boat. You didn't want to wear the mask. You didn't want to do these things. Now you're confronted with having a vaccine. However, if you're more on the preventative side, which I'm going to say, stop right there. You can put it down. You don't have a mask, and I don't want to get corona. I say those things. I literally say those things to people.
And it is
hear it.
And it is peer pressure, because I remember going over some people's houses and they looked at me like I was crazy because I still had my mask on, and my stupid behind took it off and then got sick. And then it was like, oh my God, I think I got the Rona. And I didn't, but it freaked me out. So I was like, I'm gonna always keep this on. I want to get to a couple of questions. I want to make sure Janora jumps in. And I also want to bring up the fact that some of these vaccines are going to the Black community. There's this one guy that owns a clinic in the poor Black area, and he said majority of the people who are coming in to get the vaccine are all white, rich white people. They are going to the hood. And these are the same people who were like, we don't believe in the corona. We don't believe in wearing masks. But they all going into the Black neighborhoods to get this vaccine. So I want to make sure we touch upon that. But there are a couple of questions. The first one we'll start with is Judy. Judy had a question right here. Wait, nope, that's the one. Hold on one second. She had a question right here. And then, Janora, I'll let you jump in after they answer these questions kind of quickly, and then we'll let you jump in. Go ahead. So I've had a chordoma removed. Is that considered a prior condition that puts me at a higher risk? Do you guys, anybody would like to answer that? And then she also put what it is right here. So anybody like to answer that? James?
Sure. It's this is one of those, you are one of those people, just like everyone. You can have this whole conversation we're all having, by the way, with your primary care provider, which I really hope everyone has. And sit them down and talk to them. Be like, you know what? I don't like this thing. I think this vaccine scares me. What do you think? Have an honest conversation with them. You, as someone who has had cancer in your past, absolutely you need to talk to a primary care provider before you get this vaccine. It depends on where you are with your treatment, whether or not you are considered someone with an underlying health condition. If this was removed years ago, you're not undergoing chemo or radiation, you're in complete remission, and you can be confident in that. You may not be someone who is considered high risk right now, but if that has been within the last 5 years, definitely talk to your primary care provider. You are probably in a high risk group and you might be able to get the vaccine before others.
Okay, Janora, can you read this one for me?
Absolutely. This is from Christopher. Hey, Christopher, thanks for joining us today. I have multiple sclerosis and I will be eligible to get the vaccine next month. Do you know how people with neurological disorders react to the vaccine?
Oh, that's a good question, and I wish we had more data to really answer that. I don't think that we've looked specifically at that to have any numbers to tell. But having multiple sclerosis, definitely you're someone who has a medical condition that can that make you at higher risk for developing complications from COVID-19. But again, that's going to be a conversation that you need to have with your healthcare provider to see where you are with your conditions. And I'm not as fully aware of the different types of medications that you would take with multiple sclerosis, but Dr. James, you can chime in that, basically it's a conversation you need to have depending on where you are with things.
And I know this sometimes sounds like we're punting, like we're not really answering your question, but I really do want to, because each individual is different. Just like there are 5 of us on your screen right now, there are 5 of us that have different opinions about this vaccine. And it's all comes from our personal experiences as people of color, in healthcare professions, et cetera. So your disease processes are very unique and individual to you. There are people who have multiple sclerosis who have had one flare and 30 years later have never had a flare up. There are other people with multiple sclerosis who need to live on ventilators. So your situation is unique to you. And Alice is right. Vaccines new. We don't have a lot of information about how it interacts with neurologic disorders. We just don't. That is truth. #truth, facts, whatever you want to say. So absolutely talk to your primary care provider before you get the vaccine.
I am so glad that you're saying this because my mom has MS, high blood pressure, and I just did not think about, I'm just like, oh, you should go get the vaccine, you know what I mean? Because that's going to help you because you have all these things. But I didn't think about, oh, maybe she needs to, check in with her provider. So Janora, and then Abdul, I'll let you jump in if you have something.
Yeah, I always want to defer my time to the folks listening in. So I'll just pop up another question. I will pop up the one from James Anthony Loving. Hey, James Anthony, thanks for joining today. His question is, why is there no oral vaccine? I understand that it is more effective and safer.
I'm actually not aware of, and Alice, you might be, or let me know if you are. I'm actually not aware of an oral vaccine at all that's in any stage of development specifically for COVID-19. There is a concept we talk about called bioavailability. And so whenever you just think about it, whenever you eat something or something goes in your mouth, it goes through this whole entire process, your stomach acid, your large intestine, small intestine, all those things, before it gets absorbed into your bloodstream, versus a tiny little needle that sometimes is a little uncomfortable, but it goes right into your muscle and it, boom, almost instantaneously is in your bloodstream. So it tends to be a preferred method of delivery because we can kind of control better how much medication needs to get to you. and it actually ends up being safer. Sometimes it's hard to put something in a pill and be like, well, we think we need 100 times the amount of X, Y, and Z because we don't really know how it's going to get absorbed in your gut. Versus in a shot, we're like, yep, we know exactly the tiny little bit amount that you need. It goes right into the muscle, goes right into the bloodstream. Does that, hope that makes sense.
That's good though. Abdul, did you have anything before we jump into why? Go ahead.
Yeah, just two quick questions. One for Nurse Alice. What would be the conditions that would make you choose to take the vaccine? And two, either person can answer, what are your thoughts on the holistic way that people are talking about using silver chloride and vitamin D and things of that nature, as opposed to taking the shot?
Well, for me, I'm going to want to see a lot more data, especially as I'm someone who has, I've had an anaphylactic reaction to sulfa drugs and neomycin injectables. So and the CDC has mentioned that if you're someone who's had an anaphylactic reaction, talk to your healthcare provider. So I know what that experience was like, that feeling. I literally it was touch and go with me. I needed to be taken to the hospital, intubated. I was on the ventilator for a second while they recovered. So when you have that personal experience and then also the knowledge of what happens in healthcare, I am going to walk like tippy toe to this vaccine. I want to see more data about allergic reactions. I want to see more data with certain subsets of people, especially people, childbearing, people who are the childbearing group, people who are on certain medications. I just want to see more data about how this reacts and responds. We've seen some cases, as I mentioned, of the physician who was otherwise healthy, developed this blood disorder, this clotting disorder. We've seen people with Bell's palsy, which can mimic the stroke. You can see that. So I just want to know more about those statistics before I take the vaccine. Because, and again, I'm on the front lines and I am doing everything to a T. You can't walk in my house without a mask. There's a basket, foot booties. I'm gonna give you a mask if you don't have one. Hand sanitizer. So I'm really preventative on the prevention side of it. So because I'm just not gung ho about getting the vaccine yet until there's more data released, and that's where it's going to be. And I'm not going to allow people to peer pressure me. I know I'm on the front lines. I know I'm doing all those things, but I've not gotten COVID because I'm doing all of these things. And my question to people is, are you doing X, Y, and Z to prevent it? Because again, the vaccine is not going to save your life. It's not a treatment. It's just another tool in the toolkit, a tool that I just currently choose not to use.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we are okay. Alice and I have had these conversations with each other independently. And I would
James hasn't been to my house. Like, I'm limit people. You can't come to my house. Like,
right.
No.
And I've been like, Alice, I'm geeked to get the vaccine. And she's like, really? Like, I think it is important for people to know that it is okay to have these. We need to have these conversations. We need people to be able to disagree. We need to, Abdul, I can tell you got about 17, 18 questions we didn't get to. That's great. Let's have another show and do more questions. And just because how I feel and my experiences and whatever doesn't mean I'm always right for you or right for your situation. Right. And I think it is really important that Alice is one of the most well-respected nurses, and I'm not lying to y'all, in the nation. And this is how she feels because of her experience as a Black woman, because of her experiences on the front line, just like my experiences as a Black man and my experiences on the front line. We just have to keep talking about this. But I do want to tell everyone, I'm going to use Joe Biden's thing, bring the temperature in the room down, like take the 10% on one side who are like, your life will be saved by this Moderna vaccine. There's never been any science greater. And take the 10% down of the people that, like, the second you get this vaccine, you're going to die. They're trying to reprogram your DNA. They want to control you, turn you into binary code. Mm-hmm. Let's all meet in the middle and let's have a real robust conversation like this one about this vaccine, just so that you can make an informed decision to do what's right for you, your family, and your loved ones.
And if I could just add on there, Abdul, another part of my reservations is just such the quickness with the changes of recommendation. So, and I know this will probably have to be for another show, but they've just recently, CDC's made changes in when you go back and get your second vaccine. Yep. So are we making decisions truly based on science? Are we doing it based on the fact that there's a shortage of the vaccine? I need to know how these decisions are being made, and are they, being made with, our health really in mind? Because it used to be the Moderna vaccine, you come back in 4 weeks. Used to be the Pfizer vaccine, you come back in 3 weeks to get it. Now CDC has said, oh, you can have your appointment in 6 weeks.
90 days.
When did that happen? Like, why? So what's the motivation with some of these changes in this medicine? I just want some more clarity on that, as well as more long-term data.
And I do think that, a lot of this is maybe if we didn't have the administration that was in-house prior, that things would be a lot different. And having Trump in office did not help us to trust what was happening in the vaccine and everything else.
Hello.
Or logic or facts.
So that's one thing. But as I was doing research for the show and just reading the data and reading all the different things about it and the statistics and who actually was behind the scenes, and it made me really sad. And I actually, because I'm not for taking the vaccine. However, I'm kind of leaning towards the vaccine. Now, I don't want it because I don't want the pain. But when I saw the statistics of how many in the community are not getting it, like there was one in Washington where 40% of nearly 7,000 appointments made available to people over 65 and older were taken by residents of its wealthiest and whitest ward, which is an area that only had 5% of its COVID deaths. And there's so many stories about the same thing. Like I can name off Baltimore and California and different places. Even with the whole thing with CVS and Walgreens, I was talking to someone, and in Oakland area, the CVS stores that are carrying the vaccine are not even in the Black or Latino area. I saw that they're having it in California. And my thing is it going to even be available in the Black area? And then my question is Black people even going to go and take it? You know what I mean? So a part of me is just really sad to see that, we're not getting the care that we need. And we don't know.
And let's be honest. Let's be honest about that. I know we don't have forever to talk, but it's because we're using intrinsic racist systems to talk about the vaccine. We have not put Black and brown people at the table and queer people table helping make the decisions about how we get this vaccine to the people that need it. So, and it's because you pointed it out because of the previous administration, but it's not just the administration's fault. Like healthcare has been this way for a really long time. Right. If Black folks were at the table who understood our communities, who understood our culture, who understood that you have to talk to Black folks, the way you approach Black folks is different than how you approach wealthy white folks, to talk about vaccines and talk about something that's new from a healthcare system that's been experimenting on us for 421 years. Like, come on now. Of course, Black folks, you can't put up a bus board and be like, hey, come get this vaccine from the federal government and we're going to stick it in your arm and we're not experimenting on you, Black folks. Ha ha. It's never been done before, but y'all get it first. Right? What is that? Now, of course,
automatically.
Right. Folks is like, well, of course, we're going to give it to the Black folks first because they're the ones dying most of the disease. But what do we really hear? No, y'all experimenting on us. Right. So like, but no one was at the table helping make these decisions about how we communicate this vaccine. Plus you had a BS administration. Plus you have Twitter, which is like 27.5% conspiracy theory, right? Plus you have everybody feigning to be an epidemiologist, an expert, some sort of whatever, right? I have Reddit too. I can read a Reddit board and then spit out some information that makes me sound like an expert. You have all these things combined on top of the 421 years of racism here in the country, and boom, this is what you end up with.
Alice, Nurse Alice, did you want to say something? And then Janora, I know you have a question.
Well, I was going to say, so when a lot of these testing sites went up early in the pandemic, I was, in South Los Angeles on the front lines. I had nursing students. We were doing testing, and in the Black community in Compton, like in those areas, a majority of the people you saw Teslas rolling through, you saw Range Rovers, and there were a lot of white people coming to get free testing in the communities. But, did we really expect anything different? Like, for so long, our culture, they've taken advantage of our culture and all of these things. So, they're going to take advantage of the services that are applied, that are intended for us, literally. And people would line up. We would open, I think, at 8 in the morning. They'd be lined up at 5 in the morning. I kid you not. Range Rovers, tests, like all white people coming in to get testing. And so they're consuming a majority of our tests because we had limited tests. So the people who actually lived in the community, the Black and brown people who needed the testing, who are, disproportionately ill for other reasons, have other medical conditions, could not get the access to the things in the programs that were designed to help, us, to create that equity in healthcare.
Right.
It was designed, but it didn't roll out that way.
And I also want to add that some of these people who live in the community couldn't be there at 8 o'clock in the morning.
That's true.
You know what I mean? Because they were working, or they didn't have the resources to, they didn't have the internet to make an appointment, or whatever the case may be. So a lot of them were having issues, and that's another reason why they didn't get to it. We're going to be wrapping this up soon because I know we're over our time. I'm so disappointed. Janora, you had a question, and Abdul, if you wanted to add something.
Yeah, my question is about the rollout. So let's just say I am watching This Week in BPS today, and I'm like, that Dr. James is dropping some knowledge. I am convinced. How would one go about finding out where they are in the lineup? When is it their time? How would one be able to get the vaccine if they feel like that's what they want to do and that's the choice they decide to make?
Oh, it's a mess, isn't it? It's just a mess. This rollout is just a hot mess. I'm optimistic. In the 2 weeks that the Biden administration has been in, the rollout has gotten significantly better already, and it's only been 2 weeks. So I will say, unfortunately, right now, the best way to find out where you land is the internet. So you got to have internet connection, whether you can get it on your phone or whatever. Your county public health department is likely going to be the best place for you to learn about how, if you are eligible, and here's why. Federal government essentially has left it to the states to decide who gets the vaccines and when. The states have said our counties are very, very different. Right? LA County is very different than Kern County, right here in California. So we're going to leave it to the counties. So the counties have come up with their 1A, 1B, 1C plan, essentially based off of the same plan that each state has, but there are variations. But your specific county is going to say, hey, we're in 1C right now, which for your county might mean everyone 65 and over, whether you have an underlying health condition or not. All healthcare workers versus just healthcare workers who are on the front lines of COVID, those types of things. If you have other questions too, you can always call, text, email your primary care provider. It is part of their job to stay on top of this. There is also a woman named Jessica Malati Rivera on Instagram. She started the COVID. They're doing a spinoff of that to do more resources about where people can find information about the vaccine. She also, I think, is one of the smartest people in terms of the science. So like the stuff that Abdul wanted to dig into a little bit earlier, like why mRNA technology versus other things, y'all can follow her for some really good information. Primary care provider, I think we need to start getting it to places like churches, like community centers, like where our people are, right? And literally preacher needs to be like, hey, all right, everybody 55 and over with diabetes, y'all, we're going to have the vaccine in the parking lot. If you want it, great. If you don't, great. But it's going to be here Sunday from noon to 4, whatever. So right now, unfortunately, you got to go online to your local county public health department is the long story short.
And give her name again one more time.
Jessica Malati Rivera. And that's her full name on Instagram, Jessica Malati Rivera, or COVID Tracking Project. Okay. Outstanding information.
Tika might be able to post that if she can remember that. Did you want to answer the same question?
Well, no, I was just going to say in your particular county, the Department of Health each Department of Health should have a website and a link that actually has all this spelled out. So if you're a visual person and really want to see what this rollout looks like, you can see where you'll fall in line. And I just want people to know, if you decide that this is for you, if you feel like, oh, they started administering and I missed my group, you can always go back. So just know that you can't go in early, but if you've missed what was supposed to be your window, you can still go back because you're still eligible for it.
Okay. All right. That's good. Abdul, did you have any last
just regardless if you're pro or against it, just be wary because they can't even get let out the water in our community. So who's to say that they'll do us right by anything else? Because
there's some truth to that. I'm not mad at it.
No, what Dr. James said earlier about Black people being the frontline workers, that's like part of it. That's like 1/4 of it, because the food, the water, the fact that we live stacked up on one another, the fact that our communities are dirty and filthy, the fact that they, all these things attribute to the health of Black people. And we're trying to juxtapose the health of Black people with these conditions and the health of white people who live like pristine lives and have the best of what have you, and give them the exact same thing. And I don't think that us being guinea pigged on might be the right way to go about it. But that's just me. Like, you know, by all means, doctor sees way more unhealthy people than I do. So take the expert advice, but please just be wary about whatever you do.
Well, we are going to. I know. I'm like, well,
Abdul has raised some really good points, and that's a part of being an informed consumer when it comes to your healthcare. You're the boss of your body. You know, you're ultimately going to make the decision whether you make like Dr. James and I see this all the time. If your heart stops or you stop breathing, you have a choice whether you want us to resuscitate you or not. Healthcare, you know, there are some choices. People shouldn't feel peer pressured or feel like this vaccine is being, you know, pushed on them without any choices. Everyone does have a choice, and it's good to be informed. Like, you know, consider those things that Abdul mentioned.
I love it. So because I thank you everybody for staying on. I know we've gone over. Every single week we always love to honor. Thank you. We always love to honor someone in the community who is doing amazing things that would probably not get recognized. So let's just bring up our BPS person of the week is a principal who has gone above and beyond to help the students at his local high school. Henry Darby, a principal at North Charleston High School in South Carolina, is considered an angel in his community because of the high lengths he went to those in need at his high school. After hearing stories of students needing help paying their water bills, light bills, and even a report of 2 female students sleeping under a bridge, Henry knew he couldn't just sit idle. So in an effort to help those less fortunate than him, he took a job working at the local Walmart, working 3 days a week from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m., stocking shelves with all of the proceeds going to help the students at his school. Let's just pull up this video. Check it out, everybody.
I get a little emotional because when you've got children, you've heard sleeping under a bridge, or a former student and her child is sleeping in a car, or when you go to a parent house because there's problems and you knock on the door, there are no curtains, and you see a mattress on the floor, and these people need, and I wasn't going to say no. And at my age, you know, we don't ask for money. We just don't. You just go ahead and do what you need to do.
And Mr. Darby did. That night shift at Walmart, it's for them. Every paycheck, every dime, all of it goes to helping his students in need. He has done so quietly, not even telling his manager at Walmart about his day job.
Even before we knew, there was something special about him. I would be so happy to have Mr. Darby for as long as he will have us as a part of his family and beyond.
His endurance, almost superhuman, walking what must be miles through his high school hallways during the day and stocking what looks like miles of shelves at Walmart at night. It's shocking to everyone but his students because they know that's just the kind of man he is.
He's ready to help anybody.
He's impacting the community in a very special way.
He's there when you least expect it, but when you need him the most.
Mr. Darby's only request of his students, whom he calls his grandchildren, is to pay it forward.
So, after his story, oh my God, it just makes me so emotional. I feel like I'm about to cry. But after his story went viral, Henry Darby received over $100,000 from all over the country to help the students at his high school. And for your selflessness, sacrifice, and heart, Principal Henry Darby, you are our BPS person of the week. Anyway, I just think that's wonderful. With all that being said, any last words from you guys before we get out of here? We'll start with you, Nurse Alice. We want to thank you again for being on the show. What an amazing conversation.
Well, thank you for having me. And I'm hopeful that this conversation allow people to think outside the box and to better understand why some people may be more hesitant and aren't so pro vaccine. It's for a variety of reasons, but don't fault them. It's just all part of being an informed consumer. And again, everyone's health, is a little bit different. Everyone's going to have some idiosyncrasies. Just because you have diabetes doesn't mean my diabetes is exactly the same or is managed the same. So just be more compassionate with one another. But I would say we do all have to be in this together when it comes to preventative measures. So we still all should be wearing our mask and washing, social distancing, and all those things. And be kind when you're holding each other accountable in saying those things.
Dr. James?
I'm going to piggyback off of Alice's word, compassion. And I really do want us all to continue to have compassion for each other, compassion for the situation that we're all in, and compassion, I think compassion for the science. I know that sounds really crazy, but we only know what we know. And I really do think, Dr. Kizzy Corbett is a young Black woman who was one of the lead scientists in developing this vaccine. And you hear her talk, right? She owns the patent, and you hear her talk, and she brings just as much fire to the ingrained racism that is in our system that needs to be fixed. And there is a duality. She gets it. We need to fix our nutrition. We need to fix our system so that Black and brown folks aren't so damn unhealthy in the first place coming into something like this. But she also knew we got to do something about it, and she helped develop this vaccine. To me, that's powerful. Mm-hmm. So you don't have to love the vaccine. You don't have to be ready to take it. You can be scared of it. You can be leery of it. I like that word, Abdul. But I think it's important for everyone to be compassionate on both sides and really open your mind to the reality of what we're living in right now. And then, like Alice said, you have to do what works for you and your loved ones.
And just so you guys know that the vaccine was developed by a Black woman that he just mentioned. Mm-hmm. And she had been working on it, I want to say, since 2016. So it's not like it's completely brand new. And she owns the patent, y'all. So it's not everybody's against Black people. Any last words, Abdul? Would you like to say anything, even about Henry Darby, or just about our conversation today? Because I accidentally skipped over that. So,
I guess I'll wrap it all up in one thing. I want to say thank you to both Nurse Alice and Dr. Simmons, just for being frontline workers. My sister's a frontline worker. My cousin's a frontline worker. So, to all the frontline workers and people like Principal Henry Darby, who are putting themselves in risk and doing what they can to help other people. Thank you. I want to give a quick shout out to the U.S. Army. My father got me this, shirt from the U.S. Army because he's a veteran. So to all the veterans and people who are serving to help others, thank you very much. I appreciate your service.
Nice. And you, Janora?
That's about the nicest thing I've heard you say in a while.
Because I'm not saying it about you. There's a difference.
The conversation was going so well. No, I'm definitely going to wrap up with another round of appreciation for you both, Dr. James and Nurse Alice. I think it's so important when making a decision to have a balanced conversation from people that know what they're talking about. Mm-hmm. And Dr. James, when you talked about dropping the edges who are on the extreme with crazy theories and just coming to the middle, and both of you all coming to the middle with compassion, I can't summarize it any better. So thank you both for exactly what you brought. And thank you all who tuned in today, who dropped your 2 cents or asked a wonderful question. We appreciate you as well. And our show is not a show without you. So again, thank you.
And I just want to thank everybody who's out there watching. Again, like Janora was saying, we really, really appreciate you guys tuning in every single week, sharing it. Make sure you like it, share it. Nurse Alice, Dr. James, thank you for your knowledge. Thank you for bringing different perspectives. We just want the right information, really. You know what I mean? We want the right information. We don't want to be bamboozled, be the test babies again. But we also don't want to end up dying because we're not taking the vaccine if we need to be taking the vaccine. So I think you gave a well-rounded, and I just pray all of you guys out there that you make the right choice, that you are able to walk away with something that makes you make a decision either for or against the vaccine. But be safe, wear your mask, wash your hands, all of that. And don't be afraid to tell people, you better put that mask on. Don't be coming up in my house without having that mask on. Don't be afraid to say that. And again, next week, just so you guys know, we are going to have guests from the Love Boat. No, so it'll be all about love. Ted Lange will be on here, and a couple of the other ones will be on, I think Linda. But yeah, we will see you guys next week. Have a little good time. We're also going to have Blair Nash on the following week, talk about relationships, money, all of that good stuff. So keep tuning in. This was This Week in Black People Shit. I'm Christy Ferris, and you guys have a good night.